recorded and made available on our website by the end of the week. So if you missed any part of it, please check back under past webinars. And Anish, if you are ready, I'm going to go ahead and switch screens to make you presenter.
Sure.
All right, everyone, have a wonderful session.
Okay, good day, folks. My name is Anish. With Pragmatic Works as a BI consultant. I'm at the South African branch. For today, we're going to touch on SQL Server 2012 SSIS new and improved features. Just a quick question. Are you all able to hear me correctly? Or,
I can hear you great. Is your
too loud, too soft?
No, we can hear you. You're showing the free training on the T's right now.
Sorry, say that again?
I can hear you. Are you showing the free training on the T's right now?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Okay. So from the poll, I see we have 42% that's quite experienced in SSIS packages. My session is going to deal more on the entry level. It is on RC0. I think there was a question on what version of SQL Server 2012 I'll be presenting on. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's just quickly touch on some of the stuff that I'm going through. First thing I'm going to touch on is the interface. What you would find that BIDS has now been incorporated within the Visual Studio 2012 shell. And what this means is that we have support for .NET 4. The Visual Studio environment alone introduces some slight user interface changes from previous version of BIDS. These enhancements to the interface help you to learn about the package development process if you are new to integration services, and enable you to develop packages more easily if you are already experienced with SSIS. Okay, so let's quickly jump into BIDS itself. And within SQL Server 2012, BIDS has now been renamed to SQL Server Data Tools. And to launch that, we'll quickly click on that. As you can see, that interface is pretty much the same as Visual Studio development. It uses the shell, and you customize it upon the first installation and running of BIDS. You actually choose whether you want it as the generic Visual Studio interface or, in our case, SSIS. Okay, so just going to quickly open my package. Okay. So the first thing you notice that we still have the control flow, data flow. In addition to Denali or RC0 is that we have a new tab called parameters. That's all the way up there. And basically parameters is the replacement of configuration files in the previous version to provide a new way to change values within package at runtime without requiring you to open the package and make changes directly. And you basically add new parameters, name your parameter, whatever you need to name it, your value, we're going to put that as string, and I'm going to point that to a directory. So basically what you would use parameters is for deployment of your packages to the SQL Server environment, and we'll touch a little bit more later on the new package deployment process. Okay. On the interface, you would notice on the control panel that we have two new categories within the Ssis Toolbox, and that is favorites and the comment category. And what Microsoft has done is basically allow you to move across tasks and transformations within your favorites, and those are the ones that you use on a more often occasion. The common ones would be the task and the transformation that would be common within most SSIS packages. Below those two, we have the rest of the containers, and these are your for loops, for each loops, and sequence containers. And the other tasks would be the ones that are previously in the previous edition. Okay. Another part of the interface that's new is something called the Getting Started, and for all the new SSIS developers out there, you'll be using this to get some links on MSDN around any of the tools within SSIS. Yeah. Below this SSIS toolbox, and improvement around information against all these starts and transformations, there's a little box at the bottom, and that gives you a little bit more detail on what each of the tasks and transformation is. It's a much bigger improvement on definitions of these tasks from previous versions. So if we quickly go click on any of them, gives you a little bit more detail into what that task actually does. Okay. Another thing to notice is that we have two new buttons on top, and the first one is a button for your variables. And on previous versions, in order to get the variables window, what you had to do was in the main panel right-click and then select variables, and you'll get your pop-up menu with all your variables within your SSIS package. They've added a shortcut button on top for easy access to that. Another thing is, if you decide to close SSIS Toolbox, the second button on your top right corner will bring that little SSIS Toolbox back up again. We go ahead and click on that, and that brings that menu back up again. Okay. One of the new additions to SSIS is the connection managers. In previous packages or previous versions, what you would have is connection managers that were only specific to the package that you're developing, and you weren't able to share any of these connection managers within the project. So for example, under my package A, if I had a connection to a table within my SQL database, I would not be able to share that with my package D, Z, and the two above those. So the new addition is that we have a central connection manager, and by creating a connection within that manager, we are able to share those managers across multiple packages. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly create a connection. Let's take a flat file and browse CSV. Let's call that medical locations. Make sure that all my columns are correct. Click OK. Once I've done it, you'll notice that at the bottom of my screen in the Connection Managers menu that I have the medical location flat file connection, and the prefix for the name, you have the word project in brackets, and that's to indicate that this is a project level connection manager. So currently I am in the package A. I'm going to quickly jump to D. And if you notice, I have medical connection location at the bottom. If I move to Z, I see that at the bottom there as well. Just picked up something funny that this one doesn't have the prefix project in it. I wonder if that's a bug. Okay. So The next thing we're going to quickly touch on is something that's probably liked by most, or probably going to be liked by most developers. And in most environments, what you have is packages that are quite long, and what's something that I call a spaghetti trail. And you have all these transformations going around within your package, and that extends over and above your full screen. And what Microsoft has added is a zoom control, and that's at the bottom on the right hand side. My mouse is actually, okay, there we go. So that's the zoom control, and what that basically allows you is to zoom out, sorry, so zoom in and out, and you can look at your package in a more holistic view. Yep. So that's one of the features that I'm gonna like. Most of my packages end up into a huge spaghetti trail with lots of logic. Yep. So one of the less trivial or more trivial feature within SSIS 2012 is to be able to sort your packages alphabetically. This is not something that's a major, but I'm sure there's some pedantic developers out there who would like all their packages to be alphabetically sorted. So what you would basically do to sort your packages is on your right hand side under the Solution Explorer, you right click on SSIS packages and you click on sort by name, and that will automatically sort all your packages from A to Z. Okay. So another change within the environment or PID's environment is what you notice that all these tasks and transformation now have a very much rounded look and feel around them. And what Microsoft has done is to make the user interface more crisp and more easy on the eyes. Also, that incorporates with Visual Studio 2010 environment as well. Yep. Quickly going to delete those. And let's go to let's go to my package D. Another thing you would notice within the new PID's environment is the new status indicator. What you previously had in 2008 and previous versions was, as you execute a package, each of the stars will either turn green or red depending on the status, and what you would get is your whole screen light up as a traffic light. I'm going to quickly run my package, and that's going to import some of my medical location data into a table. And as you can see that the status indicator has changed from previously, and what you have on the right corner is a green tick button to indicate that that has actually executed successfully. And if there was a failure on that, you would actually see a red cross there. So that has changed from previous versions. Okay. So we are basically covered most of the general interface changes from previous versions, and I am going to quickly move on more on your developer experience. One of the changes that Microsoft has incorporated within the developer experience is the data view. On previous versions, what you would have is you can create a data view on your transformations, and you can look at the data flowing through and then monitor your actual logic that's going through that. Previously, what you would have to do to add that transformation is right-click on your transformation, and you would click on Data Viewer, and then you'll be taken through this whole process of configuring your data viewer. What Microsoft has done is just give you a button. It says Enable Data Viewer. Once clicking on that, you will automatically get that configured for you, and you'll be able to see your data flowing through. I'm just going to quickly hit the stop there and quickly run. Now, what's changed from the previous version was you had a histogram and a graph within the data viewer. They've actually taken that out. In my development experience, I don't think I've ever used any of those two options, and I actually wouldn't mind if they're not within these versions. So the next question probably would be on your mind is, so what if there are only certain columns that I want to see within a data viewer? And in order to configure this, what you would do is double click on your transformation. You'll have the data viewer option on your left hand side. Clicking on that, then you'll be able to add or take out columns as you please. Okay. Before I go on, are there any questions regarding anything that we've touched on so far?
Yes, we have a few questions.
Okay.
Michael would like to know, will custom tasks be used with previous versions of SSIS work with 2012?
Yes. Actually, what SQL Server 2012 would come with is a SSIS migration tool, and you'll be able to migrate any of your previous versions to 2012. What you would find is if you do have some custom components within that, you may have to relook at them and just adjust that within the new environment. Also bear in mind that Fletch now supports .NET 4, so you will have all those libraries at your disposals and could even improve on your customizations.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
Yes. The next question is Sftp finally available in the toolbox?
SF?
Secure FTP, yeah, a secure FTP.
I haven't come across that. It's definitely not within RC0, and I'm not 100% sure if that's going to come out in the final version.
Okay.
But that's something that definitely do not come across within the current RC0.
Okay. We have another question. If I have a package level connection manager, how do I move it to the project level?
So let's quickly. So what you would basically do in SSIS RC0, and I actually haven't even done that. That's actually a good question for me to do some research on. Would you be able to maybe pop me an email, and I'm going to quickly put my email address in there, and then I can get back to you on that and get you a much more constructed answer. Okay, so that's my email address. Drop me an email with the question, and I'll definitely get back to you with an answer to that.
Okay, great. We have another question. The project level connection manager, can you change the connection within individual packages on an as-needed basis at runtime?
On runtime, you can't. What you can basically do is if you have connection managers within a package level, you can convert that to at a project level. And I'm quickly going to show you how to do that. Let's see if I can find a package level. Okay. So this medical location is at a package level, and something that I want to move now to project level. What I would do is right-click and convert. On the top, you have a convert to project connection. By clicking on that, you would see that within my connection managers menu, I have that manager now setting up there. And if you look at the bottom, you now have that project prefix assigned to my manager. And you can do vice versa as well. So if I go back to my project level connection, I right click. I'm pretty sure I've done this before. Okay. I'm pretty sure you can do that from project level to package level. I'm not sure why I can't at the moment. Okay, does that answer your question?
Yep. We have several more questions, Anish, but would you rather answer them now or save them till the end of your session?
Okay, so I think let's save them for the end of the session. I'm pretty sure there'll be quite a few more after the rest of my session presentation.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. So what are the new items within the toolbox? And I'm only going to touch on two. I'm pretty excited about these two. I can see a lot of potential around these two. One of them is expression tasks, and what you would find in previous versions is under your control flow, if you had to try and change any variables within runtime, what you would have to do is use a SQL script task, and either using C# or VB, you would need to develop that that logic within that and change your variables at runtime. What Microsoft has done is added a expression task, and I quickly go look for that. There we go there. So expression task is within the control flow now, and using that task you can now go update and write an expression to update any of your variables at runtime level. This is pretty nifty task. What you would find is that a lot of times your logic would get quite messy with a lot of script tasks, and this expression will actually make it much more easier to be able to manage your variables at runtime. Okay. The next task I'm going to touch on is DQS cleansing, and that's within your data flow toolbox. And if I quickly go down, there we go. So DQS stands for Data Quality Services. What SQL Server has done as a database management platform is add this new feature called Data Quality Services, and that basically is used for cleansing of your data within a database, and they've extended this within SSIS package. And what you would have within the Data Quality Services is a knowledge base, and you would then go write rules against your data or your knowledge base, and those rules are then applied within your data. You within SSIS can make use of any of the rules that you have within your knowledge base and apply those rules against any of your data flows within your package. This is something that I think has a lot of potential. What you would find is a lot of companies have a lot of data issues, and with a knowledge base and a rule-based system within the SQL Server, it will make it much more easier now to manage your data and the cleanliness that goes around it. Okay. So those are the two items that I'm going to touch on. There's obviously a little bit more, and that is something I'm going to touch on, and I'll probably blog around that on VLD in the coming weeks. One of the functions that I'm going to touch on is replace now function, and you would ideally use that within the derived column. And I'm just going to quickly go to my replace package and my derived column. And this is a new expression within SSIS package. And for a lot of the data warehouse BI developers out there, what you would find is that you get a lot of data and there's a lot of nulls within your system. The replace null will allow you to now get your data, going through your transformations, and then replacing your nulls with a value that you need that pertains to that column. So just to show you quickly, I'm going to quickly jump to Management Studio, and I'm going to go to my table, medical locations, and if you look at my table, I have a column called location type, and within this table I have lots of nulls. My package has been designed to extract that data, use the replace nulls, and what I'm going to do there is change that nulls to the word hospital. And I am going to quickly add a data view on that so we can see the results of that. Okay, so my data has been through the derived column, and what I have is my original location type, and as you can see the nulls within each of the rows. I then have a derived column called conversion location type, and that function has now replaced all my nulls with the word hospital. Okay, let's stop that. And something that's also probably very annoying for most developers out there in SSIS development is you have developed a package and you need to go make changes. And most of the times when you have a source linked into another task, and as soon as you make changes to any of that source, what you would find that your metadata around that goes out of sync. And then you as a developer would have to go back in and re-link what your transformations originally was. That can get pretty annoying if you have lots of changes within your SSIS package or your environment. It also gets very tedious and time consuming. So Microsoft has added a feature called Resolve Reference Editor, and that will basically allow you to do a quick link between your transformations, and that will get your metadata back into sync. And I have a little demo around that. Okay. So what I have is a flat file pointing to a file called medical location, and I have a little derived column, and within my derived column I'm just converting one of my latitude longitudes, I think in this case it's longitudes, from float to int. And right now the metadata around in that derived column is synced up with my source medical location. What I have is another source, and within that source I have a table called medical locations 2, and what I've done here was rename my column Y to W. So this already will cause a problem in terms of getting my metadata out of sync. So what I'm going to quickly do is just delete this transformation and link that source to my derived column. And what you would get is SSIS already telling you this is a problem. You can see that with that little X image or icon. That already tells you that your metadata is out of sync. And you would then go and realign your metadata within the right columns. And if you have a bunch of columns, it's something that can get quite tedious. So we're going to use the new feature, and we're going to get that all resynced up. And how we're going to do that is I'm going to quickly double click on my transformation, and as soon as you double click you get a window called Resolve References, and I'm just going to quickly zoom in. So that's my source for my that's my new source that I have linked up to my derived column. And on your right hand side I have unmapped input columns, and that was the original column, which was Y. And what this allows you to do is then map Y to what your new source column is going to be. And in this instance I'm going to drag W. and I'm going to link that up with Y. And I've got a little preview changes button. I'm going to click on that. If you have a lot of columns, you can go and preview what changes you made. I'm going to hit OK. And as soon as I hit OK, you can see that that X icon disappears, and I have my metadata now synced up. Running this package would not get your any of your warnings or any of errors and stopping your package. Okay. So from a developer experience perspective, those are the 4 that I'm going to touch on. I think the next that I'm going to touch on is a fundamental feature that comes with 2012, and that's around your SSIS package deployment model. Most of you would know that in previous versions, let's quickly get there. Most of you know in the previous versions what you would have to do to get your packages deployed within SQL Server environment is you either had to deploy that within the MSDB database, or you would have it as a file structure, and you then schedule that to run on daily basis, weekly basis, whatever it is. What Microsoft has in place is a project deployment model. They give you 2 options at the moment, and the first one is your legacy deployment model. And just by the word legacy, that tells you that that's the previous deployment model, and you can make use of the previous model, or if you have an environment that existingly uses that model, you don't necessarily have to change the new project deployment model. So the project deployment model, with this deployment model type, the unit of deployment is at a project level, which is a collection of packages and parameters, and those parameters will dictate how your package needs to run at runtime. On the legacy deployment model, what you would have to do is deploy your packages at a individual package, and that's normally stored as a DTSX. And again, that you would either need to deploy that into integrations services, and that's stored in MSDB database. With the new feature, what we have is something called Integration Services Catalog, and that can be accessed within the SQL Server Management Studio. If we quickly jump to SSMS, what you would see under your menu is Integration Services Catalogs. Now, what that basically means is within your SQL Server environment, all SSIS projects will be stored within those catalogs. Along with that, what you would have is all your parameters that are linked up to your packages, as well as have something called environments. And the idea behind environments is that you may have a project with a set of SSIS packages, and you can set up a development environment, a test environment, and a production environment. And using the parameters, you can configure that package to run differently on different environments. So you would have a parameter that will link to your development database or data warehouse, and for your test you would have a separate parameter that will link up to your test and production databases. And at runtime, depending on how you configure your environments and your catalog, that would then run the same SSIS package, but with different parameters for each of the environments. Okay, so for the demo, I'm going to go through the process of creating this SSIS services catalog. Then what we're going to do is quickly just add 2 environments within the catalog, and just quickly deploy my solution or my project that I have to that catalog. Okay. So the first thing you would need to do is set up a integration services catalog, and how you would need to do that is you launch SQL Server Management Studio. You would then go to Integration Services Catalogs and right-click on that, and my grade catalog is grayed out. Let's quickly relaunch that. Okay, so obviously a bug. After right-clicking, you get the option of Create Catalog. I'm going to quickly click on that, and you would get a pop-up box where you need to do some enter some information and also set up CLR. One thing to note that for integration services catalogs, you would need CLR integration enabled. And this basically uses the common language runtime language within SQL Server, and that's used to actually manage and schedule run all your packages. So I'm going to quickly give it a password. I'm going to hit OK, and what you would notice is I now have a Ssis DB. And similar to your previous versions in integration services, this is where you would have all your SSIS projects and packages stored. Okay, so once I have my services catalogs created, I am quickly going to go deploy my project. Now, previously what you would have to do is go to individual packages and save that and deploy that. What I'm going to do with the project deployment model is right-click on my project, and I'm going to click on Deploy, and you get an integration services deployment wizard. And going through the steps, what you would then do is give it a server name for where your SQL Server instance resides. I am then going to choose my services catalog, and in this case it's SSIS DB. What you would notice is at this point, although clicking on SSIS DB, my OK button is still grayed out. And the reasons around that is Microsoft forces you to create a folder so you can logically store all your SSIS projects. So I'm quickly going to hit new folder, and I'm going to call it webinar Feb 2012, and I'm going to hit OK. Okay. Once I've done that, my OK button is now available for me to click. I'll click on OK and next. So you get the window where you review all your all your selections, and once you're happy, I'm going to click on Deploy. And what it's doing now is takes all my parameters, all my packages within this project, and bundles it up and puts it into my integration services catalog. Once that's done, I'm going to click Close, and I'm going to jump to Management Studio. I'm just going to quickly refresh that, and drilling down, what you would notice is my webinar Feb 2012 folder. If I drill down further, under projects, I have my integration services projects 3 project, and within that, all my packages within that project. So it's pretty much as a few clicks, a little bit of typing, and your packages are all deployed within the services catalog. Now, just to quickly touch on environments. What you would notice within my webinar Feb 2012 folder is I have a folder called Environments. If I drill down, there's nothing under that. To create different environments, what I will do is right-click, select the create environment, and let's call the development, and I'm going to click OK. And what you would notice is an icon of a globe and the word development, and what that basically houses is any of your parameters that you have within your packages. You would define that for your development environment, and that gets stored within that folder. And what you would then do is create a production, and now what you have is two areas where your parameters would sit, and those parameters will control where your packages actually run or against which databases. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's the feature around deployment. I think it's one of the biggest and a great step within the SSIS new features. It'll definitely make administration's deployment of all your packages much more easier. Just to quickly touch within the integration services catalogs, what you can do is run all your packages from there, and I'm going to quickly execute one. And the catalog actually has reporting services, reports against all your packages within that, and once you deploy, you can actually run some of these reports just to get some statistics on your packages. So as you can see, after running, I've got a reporting services report that comes up, gives me start time, end time of my package, and some of the parameters that I use within the package. You can actually go into more details and view some of the messages, and actually if there's any errors, you can actually go in and see where your package is failing. Okay, so that's, I think, one great feature as well within administration of all your packages. Just right-clicking on any of your packages, you go to reports, standard reports, and you get two other reports. One is called all executions and the other all validations, and that would obviously give you more information around that package. Again, you can go and customize reports or create a customized report, import that, and use it against your packages. Okay, so basically that runs up my little new and improved features for SQL Server 2012. There are a whole bunch of features that are still within SSIS, and Pragmatic Works has a whole range of webinars that will be touching on each of the features within SQL Server. And if I'm correct, on the 28th of Feb, we have Brian Knight that will go into much more detail around the SSIS deployment model and the life cycles around it. So if there are any questions, and I'm assuming there's quite a few,
yes,
maybe we can get going on those.
Sure, yeah, there's quite a few. Let's see. What if we want to continue using the config files? Can they do that?
Yes, so the config files are still supported. I would suggest keeping those initially if you do migrate to SQL Server 2012. Then also maybe on a slow rollout look at using parameters, because you would basically make use of the full functionality when using the project deployment model.
Okay, great. Tanya would like to know, how can you point the environment variables to their correct databases?
So what you would basically do is within your parameters tab, you would create all your parameters, and if I'm not mistaken, you would do that somewhere in services catalogs. And to be truthful, I haven't actually done any of the the environments, but it's just something that I came across last week and thought I'll put it in my webinar. But again, my email address is there. If you can drop me a mail, I'll definitely chat to the guys at Pragmatic Works and get more info around that.
Okay, great. Yusuf would like to know, how do you deploy packages to a different environment without going to using the VS to deploy every time?
What you would basically do is initially when developing your packages, with 2012 it's always advisable to do it via your Visual Studio or your BITS environment. As far as I know, on individual packages, you would need it to be within the project level if you are using the project model, because of the dependencies within your parameters, etc. I'm not 100% sure if you can actually do it outside of the project, and I'm assuming you can't purely because of all the dependencies that links it to the project.
Okay, great. So we have another one from Eric. Is there an option for deploying a single package instead of an entire project?
What you can do is, if I right click there, it doesn't actually have it, and I'm assuming you would actually have that package within its own project, and then deploying that up into integration services. Truth to be told is that the deployment model is not something that I actually extensively played with or used. So a lot of these questions around deployment models, I'm going to either have to get back to you if I can't answer them, or maybe have a look at the webinar that Brian Knight's doing. I know he's doing the full life cycle around these deployment models.
Okay, great. We have another question. This is from Dave. How about performance enhancements?
I know definitely within the data flow tasks, we have the merge and the merge join. Actually read up a little bit on it the other day, and there is a huge performance improvement just on the merge and the merge join. If you've used any of the stars in the previous versions, you would actually see a huge amount of memory used around the stars, and from what I've read up, there's a huge improvement around those stars specifically. Also within some of the control flow, I think, let me quickly just get my icons all straight up. There is definitely I think it's the execute package or the execute process task. One of them, there has been quite a significant improvement around that process within the SSIS environment. There may be a whole lot more, but it's something that I haven't come across. But those three I definitely know that I've read up, and I know that it's a huge amounts of improvements around performance on those.
Okay, great. We have another question from Doug. He does not have an integration services catalog in his SSMS Object Explorer. Is that standard, or?
What version of 2012 do you have installed?
Okay, Doug, if you wouldn't mind typing in a quick answer to that, we'll see what we can do. And here's another question. Is it possible to run the 2012 SSIS engine with the 2008 R2 and or without it? Do you need to purchase the 2012 license?
As far as I know, you do. 2008 definitely won't support upwards to 2012, but support from 2012 to previous versions, yes. So if you have a 2008 RTPMS installed, you definitely will have issues around support around the integration services engine.
Okay, great. Will SSIS 2012 packages only run on SQL Server 2012 instances?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
As far as what I know, it's on 2012.
Okay. Let's see. Has the XML schema of SSIS package changed between SQL 2008 and 2012?
XML, okay, that's something that's definitely a nightmare for me. I actually would not know the answer for that. I actually run when it comes to XML. Please drop me an email. I'll definitely get an answer back to you.
Okay, no problem. What further features does the enterprise version of SQL Server 2012 offer in regards to integration services?
There are minor tasks. Well, there's a couple of toolbox tasks and transformation that I haven't touched on. One of them is the CDC control tasks. Because with data view, we have the CDC splitter. As far as I know, one of the major features around SSIS is its deployment model, as well as incorporating the DQS and the CDC components around that. The rest of the features are not very significant, so I wouldn't say there would be something that is really much more bigger than the deployment model feature.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Brody would like to know, is PowerShell directly supported by SSIS 2012, or is that only through the Pragmatic Works add-ons?
The PowerShell is definitely within the SQL Server, and it's not within the Pragmatic Works.
Okay. How do you disable the validation of connections when loading a package in SSIS deployment environment?
I would assume you would do it the same as the previous versions. Actually would not know the answer to that. And that's actually an interesting question. Drop me an email. I think I'm going to actually play around with that. That's something that I'll also be interested in. Yeah, great question.
Okay, great. Any improvement on the SCD component?
As far as I know, not. It's still pretty much the same SCD dimension, task. I would actually hope that there was some significant improvement on that, especially around its resource intensive usage. But as far as I know, SCD is still pretty much the same. There may be slight improvements on performance, but it's not something that was emphasized on.
Okay. What are the requirements to run SQL Server 2012?
Okay, so 2012, the final version may vary. I've basically installed SQL Server on a dual-core, four-core machine with a minimum of 8 gigs, but the minimum requirements will definitely be much more lower than that, also depending on the versions. The only one that I've actually installed is the RC0, and with the final version we may see that certain things are changed and the minimum requirements may change. So I suggest maybe just keep in touch with MSDN's website and see if there's any changes around the minimum requirements.
Okay.
What I do know that
Go ahead. Sorry.
What I do know that something I want to just bring to your attention is the whole licensing model has changed around SQL Server drastically. There's a couple of new versions. I know definitely there's one, the business intelligence, but I don't know too much details around it. But it's also something just to bear in the mind when looking at 2012.
Okay. I think we only have time for one more question on this. So that question is, if we need to pass variable value from parent to child, do we have to use parameter view?
No.
No?
You can use the standard variables, and you'll be able to pass that up.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for all of your help, and thank you for presenting such a wonderful session. And
sure. Thanks for having me. It's actually my first webinar.
You did a great job.
Thanks for all of you joining me for this session.
Okay, thank you everyone, and have a great rest of your week.
Yep. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye.